whether Abhidhamma should be studied or not, I would like to give this advice. Do not go by what other people say about Abhidhamma. If you ask me, I will say Abhidhamma is very good and so you should study it. But if you ask some other person who does not like Abhidhamma, then you will say no, Abhidhamma is uninteresting or dull, and you can get no benefit from the study. So do not go by what other people say. We all are the disciples of the Buddha. So Buddha always advised us to find out things for ourselves. And when we find out for ourselves that it is beneficial to us, then we should follow it. So here also, try to find out for yourself whether it is beneficial to practice, to study Abhidhamma or not. And if you find it beneficial for you, if you find it worthwhile to study, then do it by all means. But if you think that it is not for you, after finding out for yourself, after studying it, then you may leave it alone. So Abhidhamma is something that is, like I said, that is essential for the correct understanding of the teachings of the Buddha. Now we go to the Abhidhamma books. Now, Abhidhamma is one of the three baskets of the Buddha's teachings. So the first one is Vinaya Pitaka, the second one is Sutta or Sūlānanda Pitaka, and the third Abhidhamma Pitaka. And Abhidhamma Pitaka consists of 7 books. So on one page you will find these 7 books. So the first book is called Dhamma Sangani. Dhamma Sangani means the classification of the Dhammas, classification of consciousness, and then the mental factors arising together with different types of consciousness, and also the material properties. And the second book is called Vibhanga. It is the analysis of the Dhammas. So in this book, the terms are defined with many synonyms, and also the 5 aggregates and so on are analyzed in great detail. And the third one is called Dhatu Katha, discussion of Dhammas taught in Dhammasangani. Now here, Dhatu does not mean just elements, but Dhatu here means all the subjects taught in the first book, that is Dhammasangani. And then number 4 is called Puggala Panyati, designation of types of beings. Now this is one book that is not really Abhidhamma, although it is included in the Abhidhamma Pitaka, because in this book individuals are described, or in other words, the conventional terms are used in this book, so it is not actually the Abhidhamma proper. And number 5 is Kathawatu, points of controversy. Actually, this book is added at the 3rd Buddhist Council. Now the commentaries say that when Buddha taught Abhidhamma to the gods in Tawadiksa heaven, and when he came to this book, he just mentioned like table of contents, and taking those table of contents as the basis for this book, the Venerable Moggaliputta Tissa at the Third Buddhist Council preached this book. Now this book is actually a book of debate. A book of debate between Theravada and other opinions. So this is also not Abhidhamma proper actually. And it is not easy to understand because it is in the form of debate, and sometimes if you do not read from the beginning, sometimes you may not know whether a statement is by the opponent or the defendant. And the sixth book is called Yamaka. Yamaka means pairs, so book of pairs. That means book of pairs of questions, pairs of answers, and so on. And the seventh is called Patthana, the book of causal relations. Now the seventh book is the most comprehensive and also considered to be the most profound of the 7 books of Abhidhamma. In this book, the 24 types of causal relations are mentioned, and then the relationship between mind and mind, mind and matter, matter and mind, mind and matter, mind and matter, and so on are described. We take this book to be the most profound of the 7 books of Abhidhamma. I hope you all know that Buddha spent 7 weeks after his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and near the Bodhi tree. So after his enlightenment, Buddha did not preach yet, but he stayed under the Bodhi tree for 7 days and then went to a place and stood there and looked at the place where he sat for 7 days and so on. And during the 4th week, it is said that Buddha contemplated on the Abhidhamma. So when he contemplated on the Abhidhamma, nothing happened when he contemplated on the first 6 books. But when he contemplated on the 7th book, Patthana, 6 colored rays came out of his body. Now you all are familiar with the Buddhist flag. How many colors are there in Buddhist flag? Actually 6 colors. Blue, red, blue, yellow, red, white, and pink, and then the mixture of these 5. So altogether there are 6 kinds of rays. So these 6 kinds of rays came out of the Buddha when he contemplated on the 7th book of Abhidhamma. That was because the first 6 books, although they were very difficult for us, very profound, but for the Buddha, for the Buddha's super wisdom, they are not deep enough. So when he was contemplating on the first 6 books, his super wisdom was like a big whale put in a small tank, so that the whale could not move about as it likes. In the same way, his super wisdom could not get enough space to move about. But when Buddha contemplated on the 7th book, his wisdom was like the whale put back into the ocean. So when the whale was put back into the ocean, he would be very glad and he would move about freely. So in the same way, when Buddha reached the 7th book, his super wisdom got what he wanted, and his super wisdom can go deep into the Patana, and Patana was deep enough for his super wisdom to go about. And so when Buddha was contemplating on the seventh book, he became very glad. So when his mind was glad, his heart became clear. And when his heart became clear, the other material properties also became clear, and that is why the rays of six color came out of the body of the Buddha. So the seventh book is said to be the most profound and then also the most comprehensive. Now, during the time of the Buddha, it may be enough for the disciples to understand these seven books without other help. But as time went on, when the disciples became removed from the Buddha by time, they began to need some books for explanation of these seven books of Abhidhamma. So the commentaries were written on these seven books of Abhidhamma, and these commentaries were later compiled into one commentary by the Venerable Buddhaghosa. So the Venerable Buddhaghosa in the 5th century AD wrote the commentaries to Abhidhamma Pitaka. He wrote means actually he edited and translated the existing commentaries written in Sinhalese language. So even though Venerable Buddhaghosa lived in the 5th century, what he wrote in the commentaries go back to the time of the Buddha himself. That is why we have so much respect for the commentaries. We do not believe that Venerable Buddhaghosa wrote these commentaries all by himself. Actually, he was just the compiler and the translator of the existing commentaries, and that go back to the time of the Buddha himself, and that is why we have so much respect for the commentaries. And also, without the help of commentaries, in many places, we cannot understand the teachings of the Buddha. There appear the commentary on the Abhidhamma Pitaka written by the Venerable Buddhaghosa. But as time went on, again, even the commentaries are not easy to understand, and so we need another type of explanation called sub-commentaries. So in the about 7th century AD, the Venerable Ananda, not the Buddha's personal attendant Ananda, but another Ananda, wrote the sub-commentaries. Again, those sub-commentaries were explained by the Venerable Dhammapala after the 7th century. So there are 3 levels of commentaries for the Abhidhamma Pitaka. The first is the commentaries, the second sub-commentaries, and third sub-commentaries. And then later, the authors wrote treatises on Abhidhamma, both in Pali language and in other languages as well. So there are now many books on Abhidhamma, both in Pali and other languages. Now, as I told you before, it is almost impossible to go into Abhidhamma Pitaka without the basic knowledge. Right. And the basic knowledge of Abhidhamma, we find it difficult to get, because you have to go through all 7 books in order to know which is essential and which is not. And so to our joy, maybe there appeared in the 11th century a book called Abhidhammatthasangaha. Now this book, the original of this book is the Abhidhammatthasangaha. So this book is the translation and explanation of that book. So that Abhidhammatthasangaha was written by a native of South India. His name was Anuruddha. All the fundamental teachings of Abhidhamma are treated in this small book. And this small book is the most popular handbook for the study of Abhidhamma. It is an indispensable guide to Abhidhamma, and it is still a textbook for Abhidhamma, especially in Myanmar. In Myanmar, where Abhidhamma is a compulsory subject for all monks, nuns, and novices. The Abhidhammatthasangaha is learned by all monks, nuns, and novices. Now, if you become a novice, and if you decide to be a novice or a monk for life or for some period of time, then immediately after your ordination you will be given this book. I mean, the original of this book, and you have to memorize it. Even though you do not know any meaning of it, you are made to memorize it first, because we have the saying, we put the book in our stomach. So once in our stomach, we can digest it anytime we like. And so first we take the book by heart and then try to understand the meaning of it. So the Abhidhammatthasangaha came to be very popular in Myanmar. Theravada Buddhism was introduced to Upper Burma in the 11th century AD. Ever since that time, Abhidhamma has been a very popular subject with Myanmar monks, and many treatises were written in Myanmar, both in Pali and in Burmese. So, in a book published in 1968, in the introduction of that book, all the treatises of Abhidhamma available were listed there, and there were 333 treatises at that time. By now it may have been more than that. And then there are what are called night lessons in Myanmar. Now night lessons means we study the Abhidhamma during the day, and then at night we go to the teacher, and no lights or very faint lights. We go to the teacher without books, and then we recite what we have learned during the day, and the teacher would give explanations to what we have learned. And so we learn in that way, and that is a very good method of making yourself familiar with the intricacies of Abhidhamma. I think because of these night lessons, Burmese monks are more familiar with Abhidhamma than monks of other countries. And we have to thank our ancient teachers for creating this kind of study. So it is a compulsory subject for every monk, novice, and nun, and also many lay people study Abhidhamma, and then they even wrote books on Abhidhamma, and there were teachers of Abhidhamma among lay people. Now, with regard to Abhidhammatthasangaha, there are English translations of that book. And the first one is called the Compendium of Philosophy by Wu Shui Zhan Ang. He was a Burmese gentleman. So he translated the abhidhammatthasangaha with a long introduction. So his introduction is very, very good, and maybe even better than the translation of the book itself. So there are 76 pages of the introduction in that book on different topics of Abhidhamma. The second book is called Abhidhamma Philosophy Volume 1 by Bhikkhu Kashyap. It first appeared in 1942. He wrote two volumes on Abhidhamma, and the first volume is the translation of the Abhidhammatthasangaha, and the second volume is a brief description of the 7 books of Abhidhamma. And the third translation is called a Manual of Abhidhamma by the Venerable Narada Thera. He is a very well-known teacher from Sri Lanka. And his manual first appeared in 1956, and it has gone through many editions. And the last one is the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma that is now in your hands. It is a thoroughly revised edition of number 3, that is a manual of Abhidhamma. Now, the general editor Bhikkhu Bodhi first tried to edit just a little bit the manual of Abhidhamma, but as he went along, he found that he must do it anew. So actually, although this book is said to be edited edition of the manual of Abhidhamma by Narada Thera, it is actually a new translation. And this book, when he wrote this book, he was aided by one Burmese monk who is now in England, Abhidhamma. And the charts in this book, the charts that I used at my classes. So one of my students sent these charts to him, and he found them helpful, and so he asked me permission to include the charts in this book. So we will use this book at this class, and as much as you can, I would like you to read. If you can, please read some pages before you come to the class. Now about Abhidhamma, the traditional belief about Abhidhamma. The commentaries explain that Buddha taught Abhidhamma to the gods, not to human beings. Now, in his 7th year after his enlightenment, Buddha showed what is called twin miracle at the city of Savatthi, and then after the twin miracle, he went up to Dawatingsa heaven, and there he preached Abhidhamma for 3 months non-stop. His mother, who died 7 days after giving birth to him, was reborn as a deity in Dusita heaven. And he or she, now we believe that Buddha's mother was reborn as a male deity. So he came down to Dawatingsa heaven, and Buddha taught to him and other deities the Abhidhamma. So it was in the 7th year after his enlightenment. Buddha, it is said that Buddha taught Abhidhamma to the celestial beings and his mother in gratitude of his former mother. Now, when he taught Abhidhamma, when he preached Abhidhamma, Buddha taught non-stop for 3 months. Now, there comes the question, how come a Buddha who was a human being could sit for 3 months and taught without taking food or without attending to his personal bodily needs? But the commentaries explain that when he was preaching to the gods in Tao things of heaven, when it is time for him to go for alms round, then he created an image of himself and made a resolution that the created image preached to the gods this much Dhamma during his absence. So after creating the image of himself, he went down to the human world. And it is said that not all deities knew that Buddha had left. Only those who have power, great power, knew that. So he went down to the human world, and it is said that he went to the northern continent and collected food there, and then went back to the Himalayas and he took his meal there. So to that place the Venerable Sariputta went and attended on the Buddha. So when Buddha met Sariputta in that way, Buddha said, Sariputta, I have taught Abhidhamma this much in the interval, that means from yesterday to today. So I have taught these topics. Now when Sariputta heard from the Buddha just this, maybe just a table of contents, he was able to understand exactly what the Buddha taught, because he was, as you may know, the best or the foremost among the disciples who possess wisdom. Actually, he was second only to the Buddha in wisdom. So when the Buddha said, I have taught Abhidhamma from such a place to such a place, he understood what the Buddha taught. And then about evening, Buddha went back to Tao things of heaven and took his place and continued his teaching of Abhidhamma. Now, the Venerable Sariputta every day went back to where he was living, and he taught Abhidhamma to his 500 disciples. So that was done every day for 3 months. But when he taught to his pupils, he made it understandable for his disciples. That means he did not teach everything he knew about Abhidhamma. He taught them Abhidhamma just enough for them to digest. So this went on every day. And it is said that his teaching to his disciples and Buddha's teachings to the gods ended at the same time. Now, these 500 pupils of Sariputta had a past. In one past life, it is said that they were born as bats. So, as bats, they were living in a cave. And in that cave, there were 2 monks who were studying Abhidhamma. And so they recited Abhidhamma every day in that cave. And those bats listened to the chanting of Abhidhamma by those monks. They may not know it was Abhidhamma, but since the chanting was good, they paid attention to it. And so when they died, it is said that they were reborn as devas or celestial beings, and then from that existence they were reborn as human beings. So when they were reborn as human beings, these 500 got together and entered the order with the Venerable Sariputra as their teacher. So the Venerable Sariputra taught them Abhidhamma every day, and so they were the first human beings who ever studied Abhidhamma. So we see that there are 3 versions of Abhidhamma. The longest version that Buddha taught to the celestial beings, and the shortest version that Buddha taught to the Venerable Sariputra, and the neither too short nor too long version that Venerable Sariputra taught his pupils. Unfortunately, that version, that middle length version, was recorded at the first Buddhist Council. If the first version, the longest version, were to be recorded, there would be no end of books. Because it is said that Buddha talked very, very fast. Buddha can say 128 words when the ordinary person says 1 word. So he could speak 128 times faster than ordinary man. And so we can imagine how voluminous Abhidhamma would be if we had to record all that he taught to the celestial beings, because he taught there day and night without stopping. So the Abhidhamma Pitaka we now have is the one that is neither too long nor too short, and even that version occupied how many pages? 4,981 printed pages of the 6th Buddhist Council edition. And those pages do not show the ellipses in full. There are many places where what is to be repeated is not repeated. So if we fill in all the ellipses in the book, it would come to maybe 10,000 pages or more. So Abhidhamma Pitaka is one of the Pitakas that is big in volume and that is profound. And that profound Abhidhamma was made accessible to us by the teachers of ancient times, and one of those teachers was the Venerable Anuruddha, who wrote the Abhidhammatthasangaha. And that Abhidhammatthasangaha, actually there were other treatises also, but Abhidhammatthasangaha was the best of them, and so it became very, very popular with the students of Abhidhamma. We will study this Abhidhammatthasangaha at this class. Now, when you study Abhidhamma, I would like to ask you to be patient. You may have many questions, but I always say that Abhidhamma is like a jigsaw puzzle. So until you put in the last piece, the picture is always incomplete. So until you reach the end of the book, your understanding of Abhidhamma will always be incomplete. So please be patient with it, and also you will be learning Pali words. please do not be afraid of Pali words. Because sometimes the translations, English translations, are not accurate. Although we use these words as the translation of the Pali words, they are not accurate. So we may use the English words, but first we must understand what that word means. For example, the word consciousness. Now we translate the Pali word chitta or vijnana as consciousness. Because we cannot find any better word, we use this word consciousness for the word chitta or vijnana in Pali. But the word consciousness for chitta or vijnana is not accurate. As you will learn later, we are never without consciousness. Even we are deep in sleep, there is consciousness according to Abhidhamma. Sometimes we may have fainted and say we are unconscious. But even at that time there is consciousness according to Abhidhamma. So to call chitta consciousness, and if we understand the word consciousness in its usual sense, then we may misunderstand. So it is good always to learn the Pali words so that we understand properly what the word means. So please do not be afraid of Pali words. You may be learning many things. Whenever you study a new subject, you have to memorize some words, and that is inevitable. So if you study Zen, then you will learn Japanese words also. If you learn yoga, then you learn Sanskrit words and so on. So here also you will learn Pali words. So please do not be afraid of Pali words because Pali is a language that we believe was used by the Buddha himself, and so to say something in Pali makes us very, very happy. Now that is why when at the pujas or services we still use Pali. We still, when we chant in Pali and so on. So please do not be afraid of Pali words. And after some time, or after you get acquainted with some Pali words, I can say you will prefer to use Pali words then. You will not want to use the English translations. So please be patient with Abhidhamma and do not be afraid of Pali words. Okay, I thought I could cover the second topic also, but now it is 9:50. So today we will stop here.
We will have a few minutes for questions and answers. Anybody have any questions for Sayādaw? Please go to the mic right in the center. Looks like we have achieved perfect understanding tonight. No questions.
Interesting.
So with that, I will ask everybody to rise, put your palms together, while Sayādaw and the Venerable keep their